Well, good morning. Welcome to everyone on both channels. I'm Steve Smith. I have something very, very special to share with you all today. Welcome to everyone. Welcome to all the new people, both on integrative preparedness and on American Reversion, and everybody who's joining over on the Patreon sides. We appreciate that. We have a lot more to share with you over there, and it supports us, and we appreciate that. A lot of crazy stuff going on in this world. We know that. We wonder, where is it headed? Where is it going? What should we be thinking about? What should we be doing? And everybody has different opinions on that. And I won't disparage anyone's opinion, whether they agree with me or not, because we all come to things our own way in our own times, as it always has been, as it always probably will be. Well, I want to tell you something that happened to me yesterday, and we're going to be talking about a call to arms. That's what this is going to be about. A call to arms. I went up to the by the way, this one is kind of brought to you by the Second Amendment, and it's brought to you by my books, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. Steve, why are you getting back to the Second Amendment again? I thought you were going to the well, you'll see in a minute. Went up to the post office yesterday to mail off a bunch of book orders for those who have ordered autographed copies from me. And if you want to know how to do that, the link's down below in the information section and a pinned comment. And to pick up a whole bunch of new orders. And you guys who have sent in your orders recently, I have a new shipment coming in. I keep running out because of you all. Thank you so much. You are keeping me jumping. And in the post office box, I got all the envelopes out with the orders in it, and in the there was a note in there that said I had a package waiting for me. So I went up and I gave it to the lady behind the counter, and she came back in a couple of minutes with this huge box, and I said, "What? I'm not expecting anything like this. What in the world could this be?" So I took it home, kind of excited, made sure it wasn't ticking or leaking or anything, right? And got home, sat down in my front room where I do most of my work, took out my knife and cut it open. And I saw on the return who it was from. And it was from Hondo Bob. And those of you who are on our Patreon channels know Hondo Bob. He is the brain. You know, the things that I write about in my books, the Stone Mountain series, it's about the world collapsing as a result of a CME, and we've had a lot of that activity, that CME activity happening, and not anything that takes the world down, but you know, we've had a lot of activity coming at us. Well, anytime something comes up in the news, I do post it over on Patreon just to keep everybody up to date, because that's a part of preparedness. It doesn't mean that you're scared every day and think that the world's coming to an end, but you keep your eyes on things, and you want to know what the threats are out there. Well, you know, we have a lot of people that will ask me technical, scientific questions about CMEs, EMPs, and I say, I don't know. I wrote a book about preparing for and surviving them. The science is beyond me, but we have a guy, Hondo Bob, who is what I call the science laureate of both of our channels, and he posts in our community section and also answers a lot of questions in the comments section for people asking specific questions about CME. Would this work? Would that work? What's what? And he puts up a lot of original material, very detailed original material, over on the Patreon community channels. I think he does it on both channels. A lot on integrative preparedness, but then he comments a lot also on American Reversion, and he goes into the detail. I will read his stuff and try to keep a look on my face as if I understand. Don't let that fool you. I don't. But I like reading it, and many of you who know more than I do will appreciate it. So anyway, he's the guy. He is our science guy. And I believe he got most of his training in the military. The guy is, I've never met him, but sounds like he's had an interesting career. So anyway, I get to, and he had put up, excuse me for interjecting this, he had put up some time ago lanterns that he makes, that he, and he gave the description exactly how to make them, LED lanterns, for fun or for decoration or for SHTF, and they're beautiful. And I said, man, I've got to try to make one of those someday. I'm going to get my oldest son, who's the science whiz, maybe my second son, who's coming along being a science whiz, and we're going to try to make one of these. So anyway, so I open up this box, and on the top of it, there's a note. And it says, Mr. Smith, I hope this package and the 2 LED flame lanterns arrived in good condition. These are the same lanterns I assembled and photographed the DIY AAA battery LED frame lantern submission on your Integrative Preparedness Patreon community section. I hope they provide long service and enjoyment to you and your family. In a moment, you're going to see how this all applies here. So I get down in, and I get in the box. Excuse me, don't want that to blow away. Get all the packing paper out, and I see this. Now you tell me that's not beautiful. And if you can't see it, I'll tell you it is beautiful. But the only thing more beautiful than this is 2 of them. And he had made these and sent these to me. To begin with, Hondo, I can't thank you enough. This is amazing. I'm gonna set those down and read the rest of this letter, talk a little bit about it. I turned off all the lights in my front room last night, and I just turned those on, and I didn't want to turn the lights back on. It was just so beautiful. Tonight, I think I'm going to shoot a video with just those lamps, those lanterns on in that room, and I'm going to shoot a video, maybe 15-20 minutes, just to put it up on the Patreon channels for anybody that would like to see it. It's the most beautiful, relaxing thing you can see. Now, let's get to the actual meaning of this, because these aren't just a couple of lanterns. There is meaning behind this that may apply to us today. Okay. He continues in his letter. He says, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow began his poem Paul Revere's Ride with, listen, my children, and you shall hear. Let me put this aside, and I'll tell you why this is even more special to me. Let me recite this, because I memorized this whole poem in the 5th or 6th grade. And it's quite a poem, and it begins, listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. On the 18th of April in 75, hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year. That's right. Now I'm going to go back, and he put that down here, but Hondo, I didn't need to read it because that's always been one of my favorite poems, and I had just said this to my kids not long ago, and I recited it, and they went. Because I'll tell you how we used to do things in my day. I memorized this whole poem in 5th grade. Anyway, let me go on here with Hondo's letter. The midnight ride of Paul Revere is well known, and think how this applies to us now, okay? As are the battles of Lexington Green and Concord Bridge on April 19th, 1775. Though it seems few contemplate the importance of April 18th, 1775, and the nearly forgotten contributions of Boston's North Church sexton Robert Newman and vestry members Ship Captain John Pulling Jr., who helped hoist the fabled lamps, and Ship Captain Thomas Bernard, who was the next-door neighbor to Paul Revere, who stood watch outside the church. Ask yourself, what might your part have been in this or might be in this? Newman was later arrested, then released when nothing could be proved against him. Captain Pulling fled to Nantucket, where he remained until British troops and Loyalists eventually evacuated the city. Little else is known about Captain Bernard. 2 men waiting in Charlestown then set out to ride and spread the alarm through every Middlesex village and farm for the country folk to be up and to arm. And let me go back, and this is the ending part, and I'll say this whole thing. This is the ending part of the first stanza, where Paul Revere says, 1 if by land, and 2 if by sea, and I on the opposite shore will be, ready to ride and spread the alarm to every Middlesex village and farm, for the country folk to be up and to arm. I bet that surprised you, Hondo, didn't it, that I actually know that poem and can recite it? Let me find my way. Okay. About 80 colonists stood on Lexington Green to face 700 British troops. Hundreds more colonists met the British advance at Concord Bridge. Then nearly 4,000 colonial farmers, merchants, and townsfolk pursued and fought up to 3,500 British regulars all the way back to the fortified gate on Boston's causeway. The colonists then laid siege to Boston. General Washington was appointed commander, and the rest is history. Thanks to the discreet efforts of 3 churchmen with 2 modest lanterns, which, as it turns out, lit the lamps of American liberty. And then he has a personal note down there, and he signs his real name, which I won't share. The lamps that lit American liberty. He's exactly right in this. And again, Hondo, I can't thank you enough. This is more meaningful than I can explain. I hope someday I get a chance to meet you and thank you properly. And even though you didn't ask for it, as soon as the next shipment gets in, an autographed set of my books will be headed your way in appreciation. Hondo's point in this, and in the whole poem, and in the whole historical lesson of that time, is that everyone had their place. And everybody's place wasn't the same place. And behind those who were ready to respond were a whole lot of other people in the background, working quietly, in all sorts of different ways. Much easier back then, right? Much easier back then than now. How do I want to say this? Let's learn from history. Emotions drive poor decisions. No, let me rephrase it. Emotions can direct the emotions of love, of rage, of anger. Those things can be applied properly, but uncontrolled and undirected emotions can be devastating to the one who feels and acts on it, more usually than the person against whom they intend to act. Great lesson. Great things are not done consumed by emotion, but sometimes directed. And then good decisions. What does 1775 have to do with us today? Well, you have to go back a little bit farther than that. Let's go back into the early 1700s. And if you study those times, you see what led up to 1775. And you see that it didn't start in 1775. It didn't start in 1776. It started well before. And it was all a process. It was a process that ended up being successful because everyone did their part according to what they could do, what their station in life, what their abilities, all that led them to be. It was everyone working together. Who felt that? Not everybody working together, certainly not all the colonists, right? We know that there were a bunch of loyalists, there were a bunch of fence sitters, and you know, I know that, you know, percentages get thrown around, maybe not. I won't even address it. What it was is that everyone who believed in the throwing off of tyranny worked their job, their way, at their time, and in conjunction with others who felt the same way. And even then, they didn't all feel the same way about everything. Study your history. You'll find a lot of big messes back then. They couldn't agree sometimes, you know, like the old saying goes, where to have lunch, let alone, you know, what kind of country this should be. Let's think about that. Let's take a look at the parallels, and let's take a look at an intellectual look, a look through a glass of reasoning, not emotion, at where we are compared to different times in our history. Not making rash decisions, but making good decisions. Preparing. Because if you're not prepared to do what you think you need to do, you're just mouthing off. And I tell you what happens to people who, well, I don't have to tell you what happens to people who mouth off. This has also made me decide about my next book series. I believe that this 6th book of the Stonemont series may be the final one, at least for a while, because I want to start a new series, and I've tossed it back and forth. And excuse me, allergies. Tossed it back and forth, and kind of decided between two different storylines. And I believe that this has, Hondo, you have been responsible for making me decide which way I'm going to go on this. And I believe the first one in the new series is going to be called Revolution. And it won't be about 1775 and 1776. Again, I'll let you all have one more look at these beautiful things. And I'll shoot a video tonight of them just lighting my front room, just these. You're going to want to sit there for an hour and just watch it and think about that time. As a matter of fact, you know what I might even suggest? Get that poem. If you've got the book in it, books are always better. But if you can't, find it online. And while you watch this, read to yourself aloud, because it makes a difference. Gather your family around together and read Paul Revere's Ride by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, brought to you by Hondo Bob. You all, thank you all for being a part of this. Think about this. I look forward to reading your comments. Remember that you have to control the comments. I don't want to take any off, but any comments having to do with, threats or violence or anything else, they got to come off, because that's just stupid. It's just stupid, okay? Might I remind you. And remember that this is brought to you, as always, by my books, the Stonemont series, if you want to know how to prepare for, survive, and rebuild after a total collapse. This will tell you not only that, but you'll enjoy reading it. You'll find a world that you will probably prefer to the world you live in today. Like I said, and somebody enjoyed my comment. I said, you got a great story about preparedness, survival, good people, bad people, and the good people taking care of the bad people. And I don't mean taking care of them like, oh, here's something to eat. Okay? You all have a great day. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow, and my evening preparation will be drinking my coffee tonight by lantern light. The lantern that shows the way to liberty. Y'all have a good day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.